Good morning, everyone. It's a very sunny morning here in Belgium. I hope it's the same in places where you are and where you're joining this webinar. My name is Aksana Krasatsenka. I am Director of Knowledge Transfer at Euroheat and Power, the European Association representing district heating and cooling sector. And it is my pleasure to welcome you to this second webinar focused on the decarbonization of heating and cooling in cities. It's a series of webinars that we organize in collaboration with the Covenant of Mayors. The first webinar featured Rotterdam and the progress on decarbonizing and expanding existing district heating networks. And it is my pleasure today to open and to moderate the webinar featuring Leuven. So why did we decide to choose Leuven to talk about district heating and cooling networks? While we know that heating networks is not a big tradition in this country. Well, first of all, Leuven was chosen by the European Commission as one of the cities that need to become 100% climate neutral and smart by 2030. Secondly, Leuven is a current president of the Energy Cities. So we received some good recommendations from our colleagues at Energy Cities and the Covenant of Mayors. And last but not least, last week I attended a conference organized by the Belgian presidency of the EU, focusing on translating the Green Deal into local action. This conference was attended by more than 600 mayors and representatives of local and regional authorities, including the mayor of Leuven, Mohamed Ridwani, who was very vocal on the main stage and who mentioned that 60% of the CO2 emissions in this city come from heating buildings. And they take this problem very seriously. We were very curious to find out what actually are the solutions that are being considered to decarbonize heating and cooling sector. I'm delighted to welcome our speaker of today, David Dessers, Deputy Mayor of Climate and Sustainability in Leuven, to learn more about their decarbonization strategies, but also about challenges and opportunities associated with developing district heating and cooling networks in this city. So David, good morning and welcome.
Good morning.
Just before you start, I would like to say a few words about the logistics of this webinar. It's a 1-hour webinar, which is being recorded. The recording will be available on the Euroheat and Power YouTube channel, and the presentation of David will be shared with all the registered participants after the webinar. We will take questions, and you can type them in the Q&A box during the presentation. So as soon as the question pops up in your mind, feel free to write it in the Q&A box, and we will take all the questions at the end of the presentation of David. So I wish you a very insightful webinar and look forward to learning more from David. Please, the floor is yours.
Okay. Thank you, Aksana, for this introduction. Hello, everybody. So my name is David Dessers. I'm the Deputy Mayor, indeed, of the city of Leuven, in charge of climate and sustainability, and so also energy policy. It's nice to hear that our mayor did a good job last week in Brussels. And I will tell you a little bit more about what we are doing in our city. But maybe first of all, I want to stress that me, myself, I'm a politician. I'm an humble politician, so I'm not a technology expert. And also, these projects, it's of heating, sustainable heating, it's very crucial. It's key for our city because of what you already said, Aksana. Many of the CO2 emissions in our city are linked to the heating of buildings, residential and non-residential buildings. But it is a big challenge, to work on sustainable heating projects. So it's a little bit of rocky roads. We are absolutely making these choices, but it is a little bit with trial and error. Sometimes we are doing projects, sometimes it's going well, sometimes it's not. So it's not a totally success story, but I want to tell it just as it is. I start with the general framework of what we are doing. In 2010, our city decided uh, to try to become a climate neutral city. It was just after the climate summit of Copenhagen. The hopes were very high at that moment that the summit of Copenhagen would create a perspective which result in a global treaty on to tackle climate change, but it didn't work. And then the idea was what we can do. And then we realized, and also some academicians of the University of Leuven, they told us nobody has to wait to build a climate neutral future. So a city can take its responsibility and can do its fair part of the job, of the global job, let's say. And that was in 2010, and it resulted, in fact, in 2013 in the creation of a non-profit organization in our city, which is called Leuven 2030. And the idea is that the city cannot declare that it will be climate neutral in 2030, 40, or 50, but it needs the help of all stakeholders in the city, the citizens, the businesses, but also, for example, the knowledge institutions, like we have a very important one, the University of Leuven, which is a very big university of 65,000 students. You need all these partners in order to get the job done. And so the idea was bringing them together in this stakeholder, multi-stakeholder organization, Leuven 2030, in order to create a dynamic, create a collaboration in the city, and inspire each other and do it together. It's absolutely necessary, I think, to do that. And so today it has more than 600 members. And the goal initially was to become climate neutral towards 2050. We received also the European Green Leaf Award in 2018, especially for this collaboration model. 5 years later, we discovered that things were not going rapidly enough, and so we had to speed up, accelerate our efforts. And we developed at that moment a new plan, which was called the Roadmap 2025, 2035, 2050, still with the goal to become climate neutral towards 2050. And the idea was from taking the step from doing what can be done to doing what must be done. So we realized that building a climate neutral future requires really fundamental choices, and you have to be very consequent in applying these choices. The roadmap was also a result, so it's a document, and the result of, or the work of a whole group of experts in our city. So it was also a collective work, and it put forward 13 programs, 13 ambitious programs, and 80 concrete projects on which we had to work in order to get things done. But renovating houses and making the energy use sustainable was very crucial in it. Also other aspects like, for example, climate adaptation, greening the city. Mobility is also an important issue in our city. But the question of heating stays very central in the ambitions that we have. And then in 2022, the European Commission selected the city of Leuven as one of the 100 climate neutral and smart cities. That was also a very important step for us. And it means that we are still accelerating our climate ambitions because the mission of the 100 climate neutral and smart cities was compared to the Apollo 11 mission, putting a man on the moon, mobilizing all the forces and resources that are needed to get this impossible thing done. And so the idea of the commission was we will select 100 cities in Europe, and these cities with the expertise, the support, and also some resources of Europe, they have to speed up their climate transition and try to become climate neutral towards 2030. That's indeed what we will try to do. It's a very high ambition, I have to say, but at least we will jump as far as we can. That's the ambition that we have today. So if we jump more in the concrete details, then you mentioned the percentage of 60%. That was indeed in the first measurement we had the number 60% linked to the heating of buildings. Even today, we're talking about 80% of the emissions linked to the energy systems and the built environment versus 20% mobility and industry. So it only stresses how important it is for our city to work on energy systems and built environment. And again, when we're talking about built environment, we are talking about residential houses of people and non-residential buildings. Non-residential buildings are also very important. I already said we have a university of 65,000 students in our city, so there are many buildings of the university, but also buildings of companies, offices, the University Hospital of Leuven. We have to work on all these buildings in our city. Then we came to the conclusion that sustainable energy, making the energy use sustainable, renewable, has a bigger impact in short term than energy saving and renovations. I have to say renovations is also energy efficiency, and renovation is also very important. So we have to work on it. We have to use less energy, and the energy that we use is we have to make this energy more renewable and sustainable. And of course, we have electricity, but today the biggest source of CO2 emissions is absolutely without any discussion the heating of these buildings. So we started, in fact, with making a heating map for the city and a heating strategy for the city. And so what you see is a map of our city. This is our city with in the middle the city center, and then beside of it you see some districts. We have the district of Kesselo, which is a quite big district of 30,000 people, the district of Heverlee, the district of Wilsele, and the district of Wijgmaal. In totally, our city has almost 105,000 inhabitants, but a specific aspect of our city is that we also have many students living here, but they are not officially registered as inhabitants. So in reality, we are a city of very often about 150,000 people. And so what you see at the left is a zoning map with the demand of thermal energy. So it's always what we try is always to find the right balance or the right link between demand and supply. And that is the second map. In fact, you see the areas with a high supply in green thermal energy. And you see in the most red part of it, it's not by coincidence the place where the river, the Dele River, is going through our city. Also, the canal that we have in our city. I will come back to this, but we have a quite good potential of aqua thermal energy in our city. And then the map at the right is the tailored approach, bottom-up collective project. So you see the demand, you see the supply, and then you see a translation of this in what are possible projects our city can undertake and can apply in order to make the good mapping between supply and demand. So I go to the next slide. So we translated this heating map and heating strategy in a kind of neighborhood-based strategy. I think it's very important to get a view on where in our city is which potential for sustainable heating projects. It is very important also for inhabitants of our city that we can give them a perspective. Are you living in a zone where possibly in the future we can make a heating network, for example? Or are you in a zone where probably individual solutions will be more probable? So creating this perspective for people is very important. And what we see is that especially in the city center and in the district of Heverlee, heat grids has a high potential. What the sources that we have in our city is, I already said it, aquathermy, so aquathermal energy. It's mainly the potential of the Dele River, which goes through our city. The second one is geothermal energy. We have already quite some projects of geothermal energy, also aqua energy today in our city. And we have a limited potential of residual heat. Residual heat is also can be an important source of heating in certain cities. For example, in the city of Antwerp, the potential is very high because of the port of Antwerp and the industry in that port of Antwerp. What we see in Leuven is that it is rather limited, the possibilities. We have some sources, like, for example, the brewery. Our city is also known not only for the university, but also the brewery of AB InBev, Stella Artois. And there, for example, there is a source of residual heating. There is also a possibility of trying to recuperate the heat of wastewater, what we call rheothermy. I don't know if this is an English term, but we see that these are the sources we have in our city. So when we talk about aqua thermal projects, we already have some of them today. So next week we will open a new project, or inaugurate a new project, which is the project of the Dele Molens. The Dele Molens is a site in the city center of Leuven with 40 apartments, houses, apartments, and several offices and shops, etc. And we will, we will heat these all these apartments and these shops and offices with an aquathermal project. So the building, in fact, is constructed on the Dele River. The Dele River is going under that building. And so we will take the heat of the Dele, of the river, to heat all these apartments and offices. And so this is an important project. It's a pilot project, in fact, that we are doing, and it's working today already, but we will present it next week to the press. Another interesting example is the site of Marituma. Marituma is an old factory, in fact, with canned vegetables. And so today there is a private developer developing this old factory site, renewing this site. It is a very big site, in fact, and also there it is next to the canal of Leuven, the canal between Leuven and Mechelen. And so also there is an ambitious project, heating project, based on thermal energy coming from the canal, the water of the canal, in combination with geothermal storage of energy. So, and that we see very often, that you can have the combination of thermal energy and geothermal storage, in fact. Here with Marituma, we are working together with private partners, also an engineering company which is called Kelvin Solutions, and we are doing research today on the potential of this energy project, because probably it will be possible to have to produce more energy than needed on the site. And so if this is possible, we can combine it with a heating network also to buildings in that same area. And so we can create a kind of energy plant on that location that can also provide energy for buildings in that same area. So, and that's in fact what we more and more we need to do. We need to see if we can, we need all the potential, to use all the potential we have in the city. And if we are redeveloping or renewing sites or building new ones, we have to see if there is not a possibility to have produce more energy than only needed for the sites or the developments itself, so that by making heating networks, we can produce sustainable heat also for houses in the same area or other buildings, etc. We also have an important project with a waste company of Leuven. It's also working today. It is a big digester that they installed. So a digester that makes the fermentation possible of the biodegradable waste materials. And so this digester is working today. It's up and running, and it's producing the electricity and gas. And it is the equivalent of the consumption of 500 households gas consumption and 3,000 households electricity consumption. So it is a quite big potential we have there. And so it is working today. And so in every city, I think, there is the possibility of fermentation of biodegradable waste. So I think this is really a good option to do research on, because I think this is an option that it can be done in quite many places. Then another thing we are doing today, this is a picture of myself and a colleague, deputy mayor. This was taken, this picture, last week. So we are renewing a building of the city and providing there the energy by a borehole thermal energy storage system. We call it a BeoVeld, borehole thermal energy storing system. So it is a sustainable bio geothermal energy system. And so here also we can see that there is not enough to heat the whole site. So it is a place where the art academy will be of the city, but also a school is located on that site. But what you see is indeed the borehole thermal energy storage system. We are building it today, and so I think that's also very important. Also in our own projects as a city, we have to make consequently the choice for sustainable energy, renewable energy, sustainable heat. And this is one of the projects where we are doing it. There is another comparable system of geothermal energy created by a private developer. It is one of the biggest developments going on today in our city. It's called Hertogen City. We're talking about 500 houses that we are building in the city center. And also there we see that these houses, it's still going on, the construction, but it is 100% fossil-free heating. So it's important, I think, also when you make the choice as a city to become climate neutral, to really put the standard where it should be. And so also with all the big developments you do, you have to make the choice for so we are doing it ourselves as a city, practice what you preach, but we are asking it also from private developers to do it, because we cannot miss any opportunity today. If not, we will certainly not become climate neutral towards 2030. Some words about the tailored approach. So there is not a model that you can apply everywhere. You know, every project is different. I think this is a very important thing to see. I give an example, another example today going on in our city. The university is developing a new, constructing a new campus also in the city center. So it's the campus for psychology and I think psychology. Um, so we asked the university if they could make the choice to have 100% fossil-free campus site. They agreed on it, but again, the same story here. What we see is that the potential is bigger than the need of the campus itself. And so we know that the university is ready to invest in a system to produce more sustainable heat than they need themselves. And so we are doing research on the question, can we create a heating network with the surrounding apartments so that we can connect the campus site? So we create a kind of energy plant, and we can provide the campus site itself with sustainable heat, but also the apartments in the same neighborhood. And so we need to work together with Fluvius, which is the owner of the energy networks in Belgium. Um, Probably we will work together with them. And we are also thinking about creating an own vehicle, a kind of energy company of the city that can own, in fact, these sustainable energy plants and also sell the energy to um, households, all possible clients in that area. But so it's very often a tailor-made solution that you have to search. It is never a universal model that you can apply. So always trying to connect the energy demand with the possible supply, the sources you have, and then try to make things connected to each other. It's very often a complex puzzle, in fact, that you have to make, but it is how it works. That is also the reason why I said it is very complex. You know, it is a rocky road, as I said, but nevertheless, we are taking steps forward. I give maybe one other example, and I'm watching my time. I know that I still have a little 5 minutes, Aksana. Um, but another example, for example, we had a project of yeah, recuperating the heat of wastewater in the canal system in the underground of Leuven. It was the wastewater of the hospital, and it was up and running. We had a an heating system, a sustainable heating system for social housing in that area of our city, and we had to stop it because of legislation problems. There is a social tariff for gas, in fact, in Belgium, uh, and social housing can use that social tariff. So it is a very cheap gas. And so the sustainable system was not competitive with uh, the fossil source of energy there. And so it required each year 200,000 euros that we had to pay, in fact, to make it competitive, to make the price okay. And so at a certain moment, we stopped it because it was too expensive. But it also makes clear that also national legislation should be adapted to new kinds of heating project. So we cannot do everything as a city. We also needs collaboration with other levels, policy levels. I think it's also an important conclusion. I will jump a little bit through this um, slides. This one I think I explained already. When we look to our challenges, we see that I already said it, that the residual heat is not so big. There are also limitations in how deep we can go for geothermal energy in our city. One of the main problems we have, or challenges, let's say, is also that we have many heritage buildings in our city. You know, it is a medieval city or city, and so there are many protected buildings, heritage buildings in the city. And yeah, sometimes it is very limited what we can do in these buildings, but we want to tackle this problem. So today we are preparing a geothermal energy project for the city hall, the historical city hall of Leuven. So on the marketplace of Leuven, this is a medieval, late Baroque building. And so we want also these kind of buildings, trying to see what is the potential, the possibility to work on these buildings. Also, we have an aqua thermal project in one of the old abbeys of Leuven. It's not completely fossil free today, but we took some important steps. So even in these heritage buildings, you can do some things, and that is very important. Opportunities, yeah, we have an ambitious city council. I think this is a condition, you know, it is a political choice to make, and so it is important that this political choice has a big support in a city council. uh, I already talked about the collaboration model of Leuven. We are blessed with a strong knowledge economy and a university that can advise us a lot on all the projects that we are doing. We also have an energy cooperative partner in our city, the ECOP, it is called, and we are working very often together with them. And we have still some concrete we have still some new big development projects in which we can apply all these projects of sustainable energy. I go to the end of my presentation. Um, I think I already did many of these. I already talked about all
No,
these
please,
topics.
please feel free to keep talking because this is very interesting. And in particular, the slide that you showed before, is this a map of all potential district heating projects in Leuven?
This one,
Yes.
yeah. Uh, these are indeed the so we made we've made a climate city contract, which is in fact the plan linked to the fact that we were selected as one of the climate neutral and smart cities. It is a plan with more than 1,000 pages. We submitted it at the European Commission, and this week we will receive the label of climate neutral smart city uh, of the European Commission. It is tomorrow, in fact, that we will have this event in Brussels. So we are very glad that the plan was indeed adopted and that we have this label now. And this is indeed, so we have some what we call breakthrough projects, 80, 86 breakthrough projects to become climate neutral towards 2030. And these are indeed uh, these are indeed I'm sorry, the projects of heating indeed that we selected. So this is the map of Leuven, and you see that there are, I think, 6 projects with residual heat, um, and then you have some projects of the city itself, and then some developing clusters that we selected. So these are not the only projects, but this is on the short term possibilities that we see to develop and apply uh, sustainable heating projects in our city. So I think it is very important to work on these kind of maps indeed to see what is the potential and to translate it into concrete plans. You know, because the risk is a little bit that as a city uh, you keep on studying and studying and studying because it's so difficult. But at a certain moment, you have to jump and to concrete projects. And these are, you see some of the projects I mentioned, Hertogenschieten, Marie Tuma, the brewery of AB InBev. EcoWerf is the waste company where we have this fermentation installation and some others. So yeah, it's the way we are dealing with it today. These are indeed this is the list of the energy system projects that are part of our climate city contract. With the green projects are the collective green heating energy projects. Maybe I can tell you that we have a problem in Leuven with wind energy because the proximity of the airport makes that there are strong limitations on what we can do. It's really a handicap we have because wind energy is also an important source of renewable energy, and we are absolutely limited on that level. But so you can see here the list of the sustainable energy heating projects. And then my last slide, I already talked a little bit about the fact that collaboration with stakeholders is very important. Tailor-made solutions are important, but also collaboration between different policy spheres is very important, or policy levels. We need a good collaboration with the Flemish government, the federal government, the European Commission, etc. And sometimes, you know, it is the fact that legislation can help us or can be an obstacle. And this is important that we can have this dialogue with other policy levels in order to take away the obstacles for the projects that we are doing. Uh, but nevertheless, we think that cities can be really change makers in these kind of transitions. We are trying to do it as a city, but again, and that's my conclusion, there are quite some projects going on in our city. There are also projects up and running today. Uh, but in the same time, we are working already for 10 years, I think, to have a heating network in the area of the brewery, AB InBev, with the residual heat. And there, yeah, we didn't succeed to realize that heating network. The network is partly existing, but there is no heat going through the network, and it is because we couldn't make the connection between the different partners, and it was such a complex story. So it's not only about success; it's also sometimes, yeah, trial and error. But I think as cities we have to make these choices and try. Yeah, it's also a learning process. I think it's also by doing this project that you can take conclusions out of it, and you become smarter and smarter. And in the end, I hope that we can go to a fossil-free city. So thanks for your attention.
Thank you very much, David, for a very interesting presentation. And indeed, the conclusion is that sharing knowledge and experiences between cities is crucial because at the end of the day, it's at the local level that the energy transition, the heating and cooling transition will take place. So let's tackle the questions because we received many questions, and let's start with the first one. It's about 100 cities, the Club of Climate Neutral and Smart Cities, where Leuven is part of this club. Are there any other Flemish or Belgian cities in this list? Do you know, David?
Yes, in fact, there were 400 cities candidates um, for the whole of Europe. 100 were selected. I think there are some also selected outside the European Union. So in I think we're talking about 112 cities. Uh, Maybe it's not totally correct, but a little bit more than 100. In Belgium, 4 cities were selected: the city of Antwerp, city of Leuven, then the capital district of Brussels, and the city of um, hmm,
La Louvière, if I'm
La
not
Louvière.
mistaken.
Exactly, exactly. That's it. And well, I have to say, the European Commission did also a twinning of cities. So we were twinned with a city in Sweden. Um, and I think we need a little bit more dialogue, sharing, knowledge sharing with these other Belgian cities. We had some contacts with, uh, I personally, for example, had contacts with the deputy mayor of La Louvière. But until now, it's a little bit each city working on its own climate city contract. Um, yeah, but 4 cities were selected. I have to say, in some European networks, they are working also on these 100 climate neutral and smart cities. For example, I'm also in charge of mobility in my city. Mobility is also an important source of CO2 emission in our city. And we were for 2 years the president of the European network of Polis, mobility network of cities and regions in Europe. And inside Polis, for example, uh, we brought together also European cities selected in this European mission in order to have this sharing of knowledge and experience, etc. The city of Stockholm, for example, they already submitted last year their climate city contract. So it's always interesting to see how they did it, etc. So I think this sharing is indeed very important. And until now, maybe we did it not enough, but
Thank
we
you
are
very much.
starting the journey. So we still have some time, but not so much because 2030
Around the
is
corner.
around the corner. Absolutely.
Yes, indeed. Well, there were a couple of questions on a very important issue about social acceptance. Uh, how do you ensure social acceptance of district heating projects? especially citizens. Did you think about citizen ownership of renewable heating and cooling infrastructure, so-called heat communities, for example, or
Yeah.
cooperatives? And there was a very similar question about yes. Did you experience any um, dissent about district heating work done in the city? And if yes, how did you overcome this? How did you bring citizens on board?
Mhm. In fact, in our policy agreement, when our coalition started in 2019, uh, we mentioned that all kind of projects for sustainable and renewable energy, and especially the bigger projects, should be what we called common good. So it means that we try to work with cooperative structures for these projects. Um, and especially the bigger we worked on bigger projects of solar energy, solar panels, for example, on 10 big roofs of buildings of the city. We organized huge projects for solar energy, and it was 100% in a cooperative structure. So we have a local cooperative energy or energy cooperative, citizens cooperative, and this helps, of course, a lot to create support for these kinds of projects. So it means that the benefits of these projects are also shared. Today, I think there are uh, 2,000 shareholders, 2,000 citizens that owns together, in fact, these projects. On the level of heating, it is a little bit more complicated. So in the project of Marituma, the factory, for example, um, um, I told you we think the potential is bigger than only the potential of the site. So we can probably uh, create a heating network and distribute the heating in the broader area around this site. And there there is the possibility of, I mean, it is already created, a kind of energy company that will be in charge of doing that, of owning that installation and selling the energy in the area. And there we foresee that the cooperative structure, the energy cooperative, will be part of that company. So also in that heating project, a part of it will be co-owned by citizens of the city, and that creates very often a support. I have to say that also after the energy crisis there was because of the war in Ukraine, um, there was a very big demand with our inhabitants, yeah, about how can we become more independent from fossil fuels, fossil energy. And so there was a demand of we saw, for example, the amount of inhabitants that has solar panels or a home battery or heat pumps, etc. We saw it really fastly growing because people wanted to become more independent from big uh, energy companies. And that was also an opportunity to talk about not only electricity but also heating. Uh, but nevertheless, I think what we see today is that very often private developers, private construction companies, they just choose to build these systems themselves. And so that in these private projects, we don't have citizens cooperation. But I didn't experience until now much um, dissent, as you said. Um, No, not really. Mm, I mean, there is people are not against sustainable heating projects. That's not my experience in my city, in fact. Uh, the more
That's great
difficult,
to hear.
yeah, the more difficult thing is how to convince people uh, when they when you can't offer them a collective heating project, for example, a heating network, how to convince people to take steps towards more sustainable heating for their own houses. That's maybe a bigger problem. We created a service of the city which is called the Climate House, in fact, and it is a kind of one-stop shop, and people can go there and they will be helped from A to Z about how can I make my own house more sustainable in all aspects: electricity, heating, renovation, um, energy efficiency, but also, for example, a more biodiverse garden if they have a garden, etc. So how can I um, organize my house in a more sustainable way, and they can also be informed about subsidies they can get to do works, or these kind. So we try to work actively on um, convincing people in order to also for themselves take steps to live in a more sustainable way. But it will be a combination, I think, of more collective approach. I think in a city, the collective option is the preferable option, is the thing we want.
Mhm. Thank you very much, David. I would like to take a question about yeah, the scale of the network that you described. Is this a correct conclusion that a large scale city-wide district energy network is not a goal per se? Because you focus on block heating system solutions,
Mhm.
individual business cases analysis, but have you conducted an analysis on a large scale district heating network potential in Leuven?
Yeah, it's more a question for the experts, I think, because I'm really not enough expert to talk about this. At the moment, what we do is we have indeed solutions, sometimes quite big solutions for. Uh, as I told you, the Hertogensite is a new site in our city with almost 500 houses. So it is a collective system, but it is not connected to other networks. So it's not a citywide system indeed of our network. Some experts are telling me what you have to do is to see how, in the end, you can connect the different networks there are to have a more citywide network. But I'm not expert enough to know today how realistic it is. Um,
So
but
at this stage, it is not considered.
no, no,
Mhm.
no. We are more thinking in the framework of projects in our city, and yeah. Also, we want to hurry to hurry up a little bit because each project we can realize matters.
Mhm. Yes. And yes, related to this, what is the long-term strategy to decarbonize the heating systems in Leuven by 2030, 2050?
Yeah.
In the long term, so what is your goal?
Well, as I said, I think there are several resources we have, and it will be a combination of as much as as we can collective heating network projects, uh, combination of geothermal energy, aquathermal energy, residual energy, etc. Um, that's uh, that's one thing, and then we know that um, in the areas more further away from the city center, probably it will not be possible to have collective solutions, and there we can work more on particular individual solutions, house by house. So I think it will be. we have to really try to use every potential source we have in our city, and it will be a combination of collective and more individual solutions, and it will be a combination of different sources that we use. We know, for example, that the aqua thermal potential is quite big. Maybe 20% of the houses in Leuven can be heated by aqua thermal heat. So I mean, we see that the potential is there, but the difficult thing is how to realize all these projects, because there are also quite many obstacles. For example, in the district of Kesselo, you have a place with quite many apartments, apartment buildings, and they were all built in the 80s, or many of them are built in the 80s. And what we see today is that the architectural structure of these apartments make it very difficult to connect them to a heating network. So sometimes we are just facing extremely difficult situations, and in this case, for example, this neighborhood with all these apartments in Kesselo is very close to the waste company and the place where we have this digester. So there could be a connection between them, but the architecture of that neighborhood makes it extremely difficult. So we have many challenges, but as I said, it will be a little bit a combination of different projects and tailor-made solutions.
Yeah, that's correct. Just a small comment on your approach about collective solutions for high density heat demand areas. This is perfectly in line with all the research recommendations done in different European projects, that high density
Yeah,
demand areas should be connected to district heating networks, while lower density areas can explore individual solutions such as,
yeah,
yeah, heat
exactly.
pumps, etc. But actually, we also received a very interesting question about how do you, yes, about energy poverty. How do you deal with citizens that cannot afford to connect to district heating or cannot afford renovation measures in their houses?
Yeah. First of all, we have some big social housing neighborhoods. So in the middle of the city center, for example, we have Sint Maartensdal. It's different towers, let's say, apartments. Uh, it's all social housing. What we are doing today is we are organizing a renovation wave in these social housings, and some of these neighborhoods, like in Wilsele, for example, we not only renovated the apartments, made them, gave them better isolation, more energy efficient, but there, for example, we also renewed the energy system, and this is today already 100% sustainable heating, or heated. So it is important that people living in social houses, which is income related, so these are people with small incomes, that we create for them sustainable housing. Um, we also have a group of people. It is a good question, and it's also a question you cannot answer. I mean, it also creates many challenges, etc. But we also have an organization which is called Less is More, and this organization, in fact, works on people who were able to buy a house but are not able to renovate it, to make it a house where you can live in a qualitative way, and also not make it sustainable. And in fact, this is a kind of yeah, what we call third, uh, how you call it in English. In fact, it's with the support of the Flemish authority and the province of Vlaams-Brabant. In fact, there is, as a third partner, we will renovate that house. We will take the cost of that renovation for us, And once the house in the future will be sold, this money comes back. So it is a kind of pre-financing the renovation of housing with the idea that once in the future this house will be sold, the money comes back. So it can be on the long term, but we are doing it in order to help people who cannot afford it themselves. It's also again income related, etc. But to help them to make their houses more sustainable. But of course, a very big problem is that um, we also have quite many apartments rented in our city, private market apartments. And there, of course, the difficult thing is we have to convince the owners of these apartments to do the renovation and to make these apartments more sustainable. But then the risk is always when they do it, when you get them to do that, they can increase the renting price for the apartment, and then it becomes impossible to live there for the people who live there today. So it is a very important issue. But I think the basic idea that we have is that sustainable housing should not be a privilege but a right for everybody. So it is I think it is a very important question. We are doing some things on it, but there is still quite some work to do at that level.
Thank you very much, David. I just realized that we are already
Overtime.
over time, and the conversation was so interesting, and we still have so many questions left in the chat. But I don't know, it feels like we need to organize a follow-up webinar or maybe an in-person meeting when where Leuven can share these experiences and insights. And we know that there are many cities in Europe who are thinking about this, who are struggling with developing new heat networks, and they need also to meet and to exchange their experiences. Therefore, I take it as an occasion to say a few words about our upcoming crash course for cities on district heating and cooling. And if I may ask to change the slide, please. Or can I have the control of the slides? Thank you very much. So this is just a kind reminder to our audience that on the 3rd and from the 3rd to the 5th of June in Rotterdam, we are organizing Euroheat and Power Congress, which is the biggest industry event related to district heating and cooling. So for our audience from companies and from research institutes, universities, this is the place to be to meet your peers and to exchange on the innovations in this area. But in parallel with the Congress, we offer an exclusive opportunity for cities, municipalities, local authorities. Could you please change the slide? To join our first edition of the Crash Course for Cities. So this is a free closed workshop dedicated to local authorities. Next slide, please. Oh, I can change it myself. So we invite city officials and energy planners within the local administrations to register for this crash course. It will be limited to 50 cities. So if you're interested, please register early. And we will have two tracks. We will start on the 4th of June with some general introductory presentations, but on the 5th of June, we will have two tracks, one of them dedicated to cities with existing district heating networks, and we will learn about their challenges, how to conduct refurbishment, expansion of and municipal energy planning in these cities, how to tackle disconnections and positive attitude towards district heating, how to integrate alternative sources that have not been considered during the construction of the heat networks. And we will invite cities to share their experiences. While at the second track, dedicated to cities without DHC or without knowledge about this, we will discover the questions on how to map local energy sources, how to match them with the high potential area, high demand areas, how to convince citizens. So indeed, how to ensure public acceptance of this project, how to mobilize the necessary financing, and how to implement them on the ground. So I invite local authorities within our audience to explore this opportunity. You can register for the crash course on the Congress website, so the link that you see on this slide, and you select the specific ticket crash course for cities. But please keep in mind that we will do manual verification of all the registrations, and we only accept um, cities and municipalities for this course. And I really hope that there will be representatives of Leuven, maybe David, maybe a colleague of yours who will join this course in Rotterdam, which is not so far from Belgium. And we really hope to encourage this collaboration and knowledge sharing between cities on this specific topic of heat networks, which can really make a difference in every city's decarbonization strategy. So a warm invitation to all local authorities, and a very warm thank you to you, David, for your time, for the presentation. Very interesting indeed. We received very positive comments in the chat, and I would personally be excited to attend the inauguration of the project you mentioned next week in Leuven, Dale Molen. So if it's also possible to join.
It's absolutely possible. I can send you the concrete details of what we will do there.
Excellent. Thank you so much. We will communicate about it through our networks.
Okay, very nice.
Thank
And it was
you.
a pleasure to be with you this morning.
Thank you so much. Thank you to the audience, and have everyone a very nice and sunny day. Bye bye.